Hello everyone, this video is based both on official. Enjoy. Owanoki died in the 91st chapter of the Boruto. He was killed by his clone. Finally, in order to protect Boruto, he chose to die with the clone together. At the age of 94, he was the oldest person in Naruto. Kurama died in the 55th chapter of Boruto. In order to defeat Otsutsuki Ishiki, Kurama chose to transform himself into the power of Naruto, and finally burned his life out. Madara Uchiha died in chapter 474 of season 2, but he was not killed by Hashirama. He died because of waiting for his Rinnegan to open too long and became too old. And finally, he gave his Rinnegan to Nagato, hoping that Nagato will bring him back to his life in the future. Obito died in chapter 472 of the second season. He was killed by Kagaya because he wanted to protect Naruto and Sasuke. Finally, he met his girl in his heart. Neji died in episode 395 of season 2. He was killed by Ten Tails because he wanted to protect Naruto at that time. It's very sad because in our hearts, Neji shouldn't die. Narushikaku died in chapter 364 of the second season. He was Shikamaru's father. During the fourth Ninja War, he died in the Ten Tails Beast Blast, which is very pity. Uchiha Shisui died in chapter 358 of the second season. He committed suicide because he had had one eye taken away by Danzo. In the end, in order to prevent the Uchiha from launching a coup, he chose to jump off a cliff to commit suicide. Yahiko died in chapter 348 of season 2. Hanzo kidnapped Konan and forced Nagato to kill Yahiko, who was the leader of the Akatsuki. In the end, in order to save Konan, Yahiko chose to sacrifice himself. Rin died in chapter 345 of season 2. She was killed by Kakashi. Her death drove Obito into madness, which made Obito plan to destroy the world. Rin was the only person Obito loved all his life. Yashimaru died in chapter 336 of the second season. Yashimaru was Gaara's uncle. He was arranged by Gaara's father to attack Gaara and was killed by Gaara. Konan died in chapter 253 of season 2. She was killed by Obito. She wanted to help Naruto kill the enemy, but unfortunately, she didn't have enough strength. Kisame died in chapter 251 of season 2. He was killed by Might Guy in order to gain information. He can absorb the enemy's ninjutsu, but he never thought that Might Guy is not using ninjutsu, and which the 8 gates is taijutsu. Danzo died in chapter 211 of the second season. He was killed by Sasuke, but if there was no threat from Obito, Danzo would definitely kill Sasuke, and he didn't have to die. Nagato died in chapter 173 of season 2. Because of Naruto's persuasion, he gave up catching the 9 tails and resurrected all the ninjas in Konoha village, those he killed, but cost all his own life. Uchiha Itachi died in the 138th chapter of the second season. He died in the battle with Sasuke. At that time, Sasuke didn't know the truth and only thought that he finally avenged for his family. Izumi died in chapter 135 of the second season. She was Uchiha Itachi's girlfriend, but Itachi slaughtered the entire Uchiha clan, including Izumi, for the peace of Konoha village. Jiraiya died in chapter 133 of season 2. In order to investigate the information of Pain, Jiraiya sneaked into Amagakure alone and was finally killed by Pain. Deidara died in the 125th chapter of the second season. He died in the battle with Sasuke. In order to kill Sasuke, he chose to blow himself up, but unfortunately, Sasuke was not killed. Kakuzu died in chapter 88 of the second season. He was defeated by Naruto with Rasen Shuriken. All the 5 hearts he has were destroyed, and he was finally killed by Kakashi. Probably what he regrets the most for himself is that he did not spend all the money he earned. Haiden died in the 88th episode of season 2. Shikamaru killed him for revenge and buried him in the forest, but Haiden has an immortal body. Maybe he is still alive now. Asuma died in episode 80 of season 2. He was killed by Haiden because he wanted to avenge for his friend. Asuma is very strong and powerful, but unfortunately he didn't know that both Kakuzu and Haiden were immortal and never die. Shio died in chapter 31 of season 2, when Gaara was killed by Akatsuki. Shio resurrected Gaara at the expense of her own life. Sasori died in the 27th episode of the second season. He was killed in the battle fighting with Sakura and Shio. When he was dying, he felt the love of his parents. Karura died in the 10th episode of the second season. She was Gaara's mother and died for giving birth to Gaara. Kimimaro died in chapter 127 of season 1. He died in the battle with Gaara, but he was not killed by Gaara, because he was suffering from an incurable serious illness. Hiruzen died in chapter 79 of the first season. Hiruzen was known as the most powerful Hokage in the history of Konoha village, but for the reason protecting Konoha, he was killed by his apprentice Orochimaru, which is very pity. Zabuza died in the 19th chapter of season 1. He died for the reason to kill Kato and avenge for Haku. Haku died in the 18th episode of season 1. He was killed by Kakashi because he wants to protect Zabuza. He regards himself as Zabuza's tool. Minato and Kushina are Naruto's parents. They died in the first episode of season 1. In order to protect Konoha village and Naruto, they were finally killed by 9 Tails, and Naruto became an orphan. Tabito Zet. No one knows when he died.